This is the 3D VIEW-MASTER tale Winnie the Pooh from Walt Disney Productions. VIEW-MASTER Reel 1. Picture 1. A long time ago, about last Friday, there lived in an enchanted forest a bear called Winnie the Pooh. Since he was actually a toy bear stuffed with fluff, he was unfortunately a bear of very little brain. Pooh lived in this forest under the name of Sanders, which means he had the name Sanders over his door in gold letters, and he lived under it. He was always hungry for honey, and so on that summer day he sat in front of his house under the name of Sanders, thinking about honey. Picture 2. In another part of the forest lived Pooh's special friend, a boy named Christopher Robin, who was always helping his toy animal friends with their problems. Gloomy old Eure, the donkey stuffed with sawdust, had lost his tail again, and Christopher was nailing it back in place. Owl, who was very wise, and Kanga, the mother kangaroo, with her baby Roo, watched and gave advice. "There," said Christopher, "try swishing it." Eeyore swished his tail, looking between his front legs at it. "Thanks," he said sadly. "It's not much of tail, but I'm sort of attached to it." Picture 3. Meanwhile, Pooh had checked his cupboard again to see if there just might be a honey jar with some honey in it yet. But all the jars were empty. "Oh, bother," he said. Just then a bee came buzzing into his house. Pooh thought. "The only reason for being a bee," he said, "is to make honey." Picture 4. Pooh followed the bee out the door and into the forest. The bee flew into a large hole in the top of a tall tree. "A honey tree," said Pooh. He began to climb the tree, and he climbed, and he climbed, and he climbed, until at last he reached the hole where the bees lived. But just as he started to put his hand into the hole, the branch under him went crack. Picture 5. And down fell Pooh. "Help!" he said. "If only I hadn't! Ouch!" he said as he hit a branch 30 feet below. "And it all comes, I suppose, oof!" he said as he slid through the next 6 branches. "From licking honey so much. Oh, bother!" he said as he landed in a prickly gorse bush. Pooh brushed the prickles from his nose, crawled out of the brush and thought. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. "I'll go see Christopher," he decided. "He'll help me get some honey." So Pooh walked through the forest to Christopher's house. Picture 6. "Good morning, Christopher," said Pooh. "I just said to myself, coming along thinking and wondering, if you had such a thing as a balloon about you." "What do you want a balloon for?" asked the boy. Pooh looked around and whispered. "Honey." Christopher handed him a balloon, saying, "But you don't get honey with a balloon." "I do," said Pooh. "I shall fly like a bee up to the honey tree. See? Now if you will kindly tow me to a very muddy place, which I know of." So Christopher towed Pooh to a very muddy place, and Pooh rolled in the mud until he was all black. There now "Isn't this a clever disguise?" he said. "I'm a little black rain cloud." Picture 7. So they walked through the forest to the honey tree, and Christopher launched Pooh into the air. To help convince the bees that Pooh was a little black rain cloud, Christopher opened his umbrella and walked around under the tree, saying, "Toot, toot, it looks like rain. Toot, toot, it looks like rain." Meanwhile, Pooh, clutching the string, sang, "I'm only a little black rain cloud. Pay no attention to little me." VIEW-MASTER Reel 2, Picture 8. Pooh floated up to the honey hole in the tree, put his hand in and pulled it out with a handful of honey and bees. He put it into his mouth, then began spitting out bees. "Christopher, I think the bees suspect something," he said. Sure enough they did. An army of them came buzzing out of the hole. Just then the balloon string broke and Pooh grabbed the balloon and hung on. Picture 9. Up, down, sideways, what a wild ride. The balloon zipped here and there through the branches, with a swarm of angry bees following close behind. A lone bee on a limb laughed so hard at the sight that he almost fell off. "Christopher Robin," gasped Pooh, "I have come to a very important decision. These are the wrong sort of bees. I think I shall come down." Picture 10. He let go of the balloon and came tumbling down end over end. Christopher caught him and they dived into the mud hole for safety. "You never can tell with bees," said Pooh, and so Winnie the Pooh's second raid for honey ended in failure too. But Pooh was not the sort to give up easily. Now honey rhymes with bunny, exclaimed Pooh. "That's it. I'll go see Rabbit. He always has some honey on hand. Maybe he'll invite me to lunch." Rabbit's house was a hole in the ground. Pooh stuck his head into the entrance and called, "Is anybody at home?" Inside, Rabbit muttered in dismay, "Pooh, lunch? Oh, no, not again. Oh, my goodness gracious." Aloud he called out, "No, there's nobody home." Pooh thought, "Somebody must have said nobody," he reasoned. "Rabbit, isn't that you?" To disguise his voice, Rabbit seized a honey jar and talked into it. "I don't think so." Picture 11. Pooh thrust his head in all the way and saw Rabbit talking into the honey jar. "Oh, hello, Pooh Bear," said Rabbit nervously. He tried to hide the jar behind him. What a pleasant surprise. How about lunch?" "Oh, thank you, Rabbit," said Pooh, coming into the house. He seated himself at Rabbit's table and tied a napkin around his neck. Picture 12. "Just a small helping, please," said Pooh. But when Rabbit poured a little honey on his plate, Pooh protested. "Well, I did mean a little larger small helping." "Well, perhaps it would save time if you took the whole jar," suggested Rabbit. Pooh seized the jar from him. "Oh, thank you, Rabbit." He tipped the jar up and ate, and ate, and ate, and ate, and ate, until at last he said, "I must be going now. Goodbye, Rabbit." He started to crawl through the door, but now he was fatter than he had been when he came in. Picture 13. "Oh, help and bother," called Pooh. "I'm stuck. It all comes from not having front doors big enough." "It all comes," said Rabbit, "from eating too much." "Oh dear, oh my, heavens taught Betsy." He ran out his back door calling, "Christopher Robin! Oh dear, Christopher Robin!" There was a fluttering of wings above Pooh, and Ole flew down. Well, if it isn't Pooh, you, sir, are stuck. This calls for an expert." Up popped a gopher from his hole. "Expert? That's me. I'm not in the book, but I'm at your service." "Gopher's the name. Here's my card." He climbed up on Pooh and started to dig. Hard digging. Might hit bedrock. Big job, take 2-3 days. Think it over. Let me know. As he whisked back to his hole, Christopher and Rabbit came running. They pulled and tugged, but it was no use. "Pooh Bear," said Christopher, "there's only one thing to do. Wait for you to get thin again." Picture 14. Rabbit sat in his house and looked at the end of Pooh stuck in the front door. "If I have to face that thing for months, I might as well make the best of it." He put a picture frame around Pooh, painted a moose face on him, and fastened antlers on top. Then he set a doily and flower pot on Pooh. Very nice and a splash of color. VIEW-MASTER Reel 3, Picture 15. Day after day, night after night, both ends of Pooh waited to get thin again. When it rained, Christopher Robin held his umbrella over Pooh's head. But everything reminded poor hungry Pooh of food, even the flowers that Kanga and Roo brought him. Roo handed him a bouquet of honeysuckle. Picture 16. One night there came out of Gopher's hole a lantern, a lunchbox, and Gopher, "A lunchbox," said Pooh sleepily. "It certainly is," said Gopher. "I'm working the swing shift, you know. Time for my midnight snack. Let's see. Summer squash, salmon salad, succotash, spiced custard, and honey." "Honey?" said Rabbit, overhearing. "Oh no!" He ran out his back door and around in front, bringing a sign which he set up. "Don't feed! There he goes!" shouted Rabbit, pointing. Pooh was flying over the treetops like a missile. Picture 17. "Silly old bear," said Christopher. "Give me your arm." He pulled on Pooh, and Kanga pulled on Christopher, and Eure pulled on Kanga, and Roo pulled on Eure. Inside the house, Rabbit pushed against Pooh with all his might. "Have," shouted Christopher, pulling. "Oh," puffed Rabbit, pushing. "The bear!" And then, one morning, it happened. Rabbit leaned on Pooh, and Pooh budged. Rabbit ran out the back door. "Christopher!" Picture 18. Pooh budged a little, and then a little more, but that was all. "Oh, why did I ever invite that bear to lunch?" panted Rabbit. "Why, oh why?" He backed off to the other end of the room. Then, lowering his head like a battering ram, he charged. Picture 19. Suddenly, Pooh shot out of Rabbit's front door like a cork out of a bottle. Roo fell backward, and Eeyore came tumbling head over heels after Roo, and Kanga turned a backward somersault after Eeyore, and Christopher Robin and his drum fell on top of all the rest. Rabbit came zipping out the door behind Pooh. "Robin, oh, Rostoffer Kribbin," he bitched. He badged, he budged. "Today is the day." Christopher and Kanga and Roo and Eeyore and Owl all shouted, "Hooray!" They formed a gay parade, led by Christopher beating his drum. Picture 20. Pooh sailed straight toward the honey tree and landed with his front half stuck fast in the honey hole. The startled bees swarmed out of the back door of their home and flew out of sight. "Sufferin' sassafras," sputtered Gopher. "Stuck again," said Eeyore gloomily. Picture 21. Happily stuffing himself with honey, Pooh heard Christopher and the others running to the tree below him. "Don't worry, Pooh," came Christopher's voice. "We'll get you out." "No hurry," called Pooh. "Take your time." And he sang a little song. "Isn't funny how bears love honey? Time for something sweet. Heave ho!